Alright, welcome folks. This is my first time trying this out, so I apologize if the audio is a little off. I'm trying to scream at my computer while also writing on the board, so you can imagine how that goes. Alright, so chapter 23, we're going to actually be adding to chapter 22. So if you remember chapter 22 dealt with means and the T model. Alright, so I'm going to kind of do a little bit of quick review right here. And chapter 23 is just an extension off that. Instead of having just one sample, we're actually going to be calculating two sample statistics. So we're going to be calculating two sample confidence intervals and two sample hypothesis tests. So let's first talk a little bit about means. So if you remember with means, what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to take a sample or sample statistic, aka X bar, standard deviation of that sample. We're aiming to use those samples to capture some bigger population parameter. Now this population parameter we denote by mu and sigma. Again, both these, this X bar and mu, both mean actually average, and the S sub X and sigma both mean standard deviation. The difference is the notation. One means for sample statistic and one means for population parameter. So what we talked about in last chapter was how we use this T model as compared to the normal model. So the normal model compared to the T model, we would like to use the normal model if we actually know the true population parameters. We will say we will use the normal model if we know mu and sigma. And conversely, if we don't know mu and sigma, that's when we use the T model. Alright, that part's pretty straightforward. Where we can get a little tricky is with sample size. So with sample size, if you remember the normal model, in order to actually prove the assumptions and conditions that we can use the normal model, we had to mention normality. And if you remember normality, normality was, do we have a big enough sample? So with proportions, that was, do we have at least 10 successes and 10 failures? But for means, we said, is our sample at least 30? So for the normal model, our sample size is at least 30, we'll use a normal model. Well, what does that mean for the T model? If we have a small sample, we want to use a T model because there's more variation when you have a smaller sample size. Now, one thing to note here is if your sample size is greater than 30, say we had a sample of 50, that does not necessarily mean you're going to use the normal model. You could also use a T model because, let's say you didn't actually know mu or sigma. If you didn't actually know mu or sigma, and our sample was 50, we're actually still going to use the T model. Alright, so there's multiple flowcharts I've actually seen out there. If you quick Google search normal model versus T model flowchart, there's some good pictures online. I'll try to print some of those out for class the next time I see you guys, but this is it for part one of your notes.